We're live. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our hangout with Elliot from Raindance Film Festival. And over to you, Elliot. Say hi.
Hey, hi everybody, and thanks for joining. And it's really exciting here working with Nikon for the second year in a row on the European Film Festival, which is all about exposing new talent and new short films to industry experts. And of course, the carrot is, for some lucky filmmaker, a all expenses paid trip to the Cannes Film Festival in May 2016 in the south of France.
Fantastic. That's going to be amazing, actually. Just a terrific prize. But first of all, let's have a quick talk about Raindance, because you've just finished. The 23rd Raindance.
Yeah, here's the catalog, the big catalog. Alison, you know, we were blessed with entries this year. We had over 6,000 entries, of which 3,800 were shorts. We also had web series, pilots, we had music videos, we had documentaries, feature films from 103 countries. We were absolutely stunned by the number of entries. Our programming team had many sleepless nights trying to decide which few films we could show. Now, to give you an idea of the context, Alison, if you added up the running time of all the submissions, it was 3.5 million minutes. But our cinema, even though we had 5 screens for 12 days, only had room for 65,000 minutes. So it was really tough picking it, but we had just the most amazing films this year. My two personal favorites, there's a guy called David Datuna, that's D-A tuna, like the fish, from New York. Now, he's a visual artist, and he was not the filmmaker. He was a subject of a documentary based on his paintings in America, which are interactive, something that Nikon should get involved with. He will have like a big American flag covered with hundreds of spectacles. And when you look on this eye, you might see JFK. And this eye, you might see Elvis Presley. And this side, you might see the earthquake in Nepal or whatever. And you look at it with the Google glasses, and you can ask it questions, and it'll show you clips of whatever you're asking. It's absolutely groundbreaking, interactive visual art. And what made this documentary so interesting is that David's and his paintings are being sent up to the space station by NASA. And from there, NASA is building a special rocket to put this in deep space, covering the whole globe, which means you or I in London, Alison, or someone in Sweden or Norway or Holland could actually upload their screenplay, their music, their scripts up onto the satellite way in deep space and collaborate with other filmmakers. And to make it even stranger, because it's a space beaming down on Earth, you don't need your AT&T or Sky, which is really annoying those companies. So you won't need to pay your monthly internet. You just get it straight from the satellite. And wow. NASA was calling this the biggest project since the Moon Project. Very exciting documentary. And then we had a series of films from Mexico. We did a special deal with Mexico this year, and 8 filmmakers brought over their films in development, seeking British and European co-producers. And they all went home very, very happy. They were here for 4 days. And one of the people that we brought in from Mexico was the well-known writer-director Guillermo Arriaga. I think I said that right. The guy who did Babel and 21 Grams, who's now, if you like, a creative producer overseeing projects, and a film that he made early this year called From Afar won the Grand Prix at the Venice Film Festival about 4 weeks ago. So he was with us.
That you were telling me about
Yeah, well, he did a short film that was at Sundance year before last, using a Nikon 800, a very, very gritty film. Jeez, I've just forgotten the name of it.
Broken Night.
Broken Night. And if anyone watching wants to Google Broken Night, you'll find Guillermo Arriaga talking not only about the film and the story, and not only the crew talking about the stunts, there's a lot of stunts in this, but also talking about the cameras and the lenses and the editing. And then you can watch the entire shorts, about 10 minutes long, for free on their website, for which, I'm warning you, you will need a airline seat with seat belts, because it is really, really gritty.
Okay. We'll bear that one in mind. Just now, what do you want to see in the festival this year? Because you're a juror. What's going to be exciting?
For the Nikon, sorry, you just broke up.
Yes, the Nikon European Film Festival.
Well, what's exciting for me is I get to see a whole bunch of short films from all over the place by people with a lot of experience, people who are emerging, and then complete beginners. And it's very interesting for me to see the broad range, as I did last year, of the films coming in. And what I look for is story. But what's so interesting on the jury, we've got professional camera people, we've got technical engineers, and we've got other filmmakers on the jury, and each of them look at these short films from a different point of view. So the techie, geeky guy with knows all about the pixels and all that stuff will say, oh my God, how did they do that? And I will learn from the geeky guy about that. And then from the stills photographer who might be really good at an individual frame, they might stop the film and say, hey, look at that frame. And I'll learn from them. And then I hope when they ask me what I thought about the film, I'm a story person, that's my thing. Am I engaged in the story? And do I, at the end of 140 seconds, feel some of my body fluid being squeezed out of one of my many orifices in my body? And if that happens, whether I cry or laugh or whatever, then I know I've seen a really good film.
Yeah, it's emotional engagement, I think.
Yeah. And also, you know, thanks to the support of Nikon, we're really focusing on the images too, and the visual images, and also the sounds and music. The camera gives us the information, the sounds and music give us the emotion, and a skillful filmmaker learns how to blend those two things together to make a compelling story. And again, the goal of a filmmaker is to elicit emotion and using visual images, which is why your camera is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just a quick update to everyone. When you see Q&A at the top of the screen, top right, that means you can just type in your questions. So if you've got any questions, just pop them in there on the last. But
Okay, cool.
Elliot, go back to where you get your inspiration from, because you've made many films.
Well, inspiration can come from several different ways. One is newsjacking. You might see a story in the newspaper, and not maybe the big story. By the way, there's in my studio here in London, there's a rehearsal next door for some musical in the West End, so that you might hear some really dreadful singing, for which I can do nothing.
Well, we can always contribute to social singing.
It's a story about someone at an audition for a musical who was, you know, bound and tortured in the room next door. You can get inspiration from news stories. You might see a news story and there might be a situation or something, and you might be able to take that and just twist it around. That's one idea. The other idea generation exercise is to look at your own life. Maybe something happened to you, something really random. You might be waiting in a bus stop and you might have something happen to you, or you might notice something happening to someone else. And again, you can take that information and exaggerate it for effect. That would be another good way to get ideas. And then, of course, you can just lie back on your pillow, imbibing your favorite substance, liquid or otherwise, and boom, sometimes ideas just pop into your head. Once you have the idea, though, the key thing is you need to write it down. Idea in your head is pretty much meaningless. You don't need to write it in proper screenplay format, but if you do, there is a link where you can go and get the script guide through the short film guide that we've put together. You might want to do storyboards. You might want to get you know, a piece of paper and just draw some images. You don't even need to be a good drawer, just something to put the images down. Or you may want to take a piece of paper, a bit like writing a shopping list. In the first shot, I want to see Alison in her home. The second shot, I want to see Elliot in the studio. The next shot, you might want to see this, and do what's called a shot list, which is actually a form of a screenplay. And then, once you're happy with the idea that you have written down, Then you need to go and shoot it. But before you go shoot it, you need to plan and organize. And there's two things professional filmmakers do. First is a schedule. How many days or hours is it going to take to shoot this? And where? And then, of course, you've got to figure out how much all that stuff's going to cost you to get it. Can you use someone's club for free in the morning before the cleaners come in? Can you use your own apartment? Or maybe you've got a friend whose father's a priest. Can you use the cathedral? I don't know. This is all part of the process. And out of that comes a budget where you list all the stuff you need and all the people you need. And next to each person's name or stuff, you put how much money you need to pay for it. Now, Alison, as you know, working so long as you have in media, there are three different ways you can pay for stuff or people. The first way is cash, of course. And do we not like cash, Alison? It's cash is best. But sometimes you don't have very much cash. So you can say to someone, I'll pay you deferred payment. And what that means, you give me what I need or want, and I sign a contract that says, I will give you the money later out of profit, if any. That's a deferred payment. Or I might say to you, Alison, thanks for helping me out today. I'm going to promote your business, and we do it in kind. That's also known as product placement. So three different ways you can pay for stuff: cash, deferred, or in kind. And once you now have your schedule and your budget, then you go into what we call the pre-production phase, where you make sure that everyone shows up at the right place at the right time, and hopefully you've got a camera.
Perfect. I have a question now from Logan Pictures, who is currently for your 14th film competition, and really enjoying it because it's an opportunity to be creative on a very, very low budget. And his question is, do you think a lot of filmmakers lose their creativity because they're too focused?
Well, that's true. I think I'm working with a filmmaker right now, wants $1 million for a film, and I know you can make it for probably 200,000. And I keep saying to him, why do you need $1 million? And he keeps saying, because it's going to look better. And that's not true. Money does not make a better looking film. No matter what your budget is. And by the way, Alison, in my life as a scenic artist, before I started Raindance, I worked on 68 features and over 700 commercials and short films. We never had enough money, and I worked on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one of many, many scenic artists in that film. You never, ever have enough money. So when you wait until you get the right amount of money, you're no longer a filmmaker. You're someone waiting for the white knight to come and give you money. And when you need money for something, it is it not, as in life, to solve a problem. So some people view not having money as a problem, when in fact they should look at their film as a series of challenging creative opportunities. So sometimes having less money makes you a better filmmaker than when you have all kinds of money. And I totally agree with the person who asked the question. Yes, many filmmakers become people waiting and waiting and waiting for the big, big, big budget, when in actual fact they should just go out and shoot it with whatever it is that they've got.
Absolutely. So shall we just start now with something from the short film toolkit prepared for us? So just started there. How do you script together? What's the first thing you really need?
To get a good script, sorry, Alison.
Yeah,
to get your script?
Yeah, together. Your first call for making your script.
Yeah, well, can I tell you a parable?
Of course.
Way back in the distant ages of time, before civilization began, I was an art student in Toronto. And when I graduated, my degree had nothing to do with filmmaking. I, however, did have a certificate in something called cire perdu, which means lost wax bronze casting, the ancient art of the Greeks. And with that, I came over to London in the mid-70s for the first time, and I worked for a while for the bright British sculptor, long dead now, Sir Henry Moore. I was one of 40 technicians out in Muchadlen in Hertfordshire. And this is how my day went. And I'm telling you this to answer your question of how to get your script together. You get there at 8 o'clock, you put on your overalls, we would go out to the big enlargement studio. And by the way, it's still a museum, go visit it, it's a wonderful day. And then we'd start working away about 8:30 in the morning. The head technician would come out to make sure no one was screwing up. And at 9 o'clock, like clockwork, every single morning, out would come Sir Henry Moore, white shirt, red bow tie, blue apron, his hammer and chisel to make sure no one else was screwing up. And I noticed after a few weeks that at 11 o'clock, like clockwork, he would walk back for breakfast, I suppose, but he wouldn't take the direct route down the lane to the simple house. He would walk through the valley. And in the valley, there was a little stream, and I would see him bending over and putting stuff in his pocket. Now, he would have been 70, 72 at the time, and you British, Alison, are known for being eccentric, but the sight of an elderly man walking through a meadow putting stuff in his pocket blew my mind. I thought, wow, these people are really crazy. I'm Canadian, remember? Mm-hmm. One morning at about 11:30, I got sent into the farmhouse to deliver a message, and there he was, my hero, Sir Henry Moore, the greatest sculptor of his generation, sitting eating breakfast, and above the table on a shelf were little bits of bone and stone he had picked up from the stream. There was an abattoir just upstream, and he was sketching these little bits of bone and stone in a sketchbook, tons of little sketches. And I said to him, in words of this effect, I said, "Oh, Sir Henry Moore, creator of monumental sculptures in bronze and wood and stone, why of you, of all people, why are you sketching these little bits?" To which he said to me, "I am building up my vocabulary of shapes." And you see, Alison, I think that's really good advice for screenwriters. You come down with an idea, come down with another idea, come down with another idea. And if you were like Henry Moore, when he saw an idea he liked, he did a bigger drawing, a more finished, polished screenplay, if you like. And if you like that, then he did a little wax maquette. He did hundreds of these that, you know, if he liked a few, he'd put them in bronze. And if he really liked it, then those would be the inspiration for his big monumental sculptures, his feature film. So a successful filmmaker comes up with ideas all the time, keep reevaluating, reassessing them. And remember, as an artist, we look at artists to find out what they're thinking, to see if we can learn something about our life that we didn't know, or we're looking for a storyteller, a filmmaker, to take us to a world that we do not know and teach us something new that we can use for our own life. And the beauty of the 140-second competition, Alison, is simply this: you condense, you distill, and bring down to the actual, if you like, what's the right word, food word, filet, the steak, the actual little bit with none of the trimmings. And when you do that properly, people will see that and they will just go, wow, as we did last year, judging the Nikon shorts last year.
Absolutely. When you get something that is universal, actually, that was one of the points that you made on the guide about the universal movement, about cyclical within. Could you just touch on that?
Well, the universal moment is such a great tool to use as a short filmmaker, because if you see a wedding party, or you see a Christmas tree, or I don't know, flag waving at a national holiday, it condenses everything, and you don't need all those minutes and pages to explain what's going on. And a universal moment can be macro, like something everyone's doing, like say Christmas, or it can be micro, like, oh my God, I just stepped on a thumbtack and I hurt my foot. You know, or I'm waiting in a bus stop. Everyone waits at a bus stop. You know, we just know what's going on. Oh, this poor person's either going to or coming from work. We all experience these things. And then once you've chosen a universal moment, what element can you add to that to take us out of that and show us, again, something unusual?
Well, that's what we're asking, aren't we? This time, without being everyday moments, we're asking people to see something so common, shared by everyone, and elevate it into a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if I was doing a film for the Nikon shorts, and I can't because I'm a doer, I would pick a really dull and boring universal moment, like, I don't know, opening my email account, something, or making my bed in the morning. not that I often do, or brushing my teeth. These are really dull and boring things. But what new insight can I give to the viewer of my film or story that makes them go, oh my God, that's really different. You know, and you can do it for comedy, you could do it for horror. You brush your teeth and your teeth fall out, that's horrible. Or you can, or brush your teeth and, the minute you brush your teeth and all sparkly clean, the prince of your dreams walks in. I don't know, but there's all kinds of, the possibilities are endless, which is a good thing. But what is a bad thing is the possibilities are endless too. And the skill of a good storyteller is to do those little pebbles, explore your vocabulary of story, and then just pick one and just say, forget about it, and go and do it with whatever resources you have. And this is where Raindance is very different from anyone else. Many people, like the person who asked the question, will say, I gotta get a lot of money to do this. Yeah, I can't do this unless I have a lot of money. And the difference between that and Raindance is, you want to make your film? Go do it. Well, we'll show you how you can do it with whatever resources you have.
And the same for Nikon European Film Festival. It's open to everyone. On any device. It's a very, very short, 140 seconds. And the theme is very good. So,
yeah. Well, here's the beauty too, and again, I don't want this to sound like a cheap platitude, but the reason I allowed myself name and the name of Raindance to get involved is because it is so democratic. It doesn't matter who or what or where you are. It does not matter whether you have any experience or not. In fact, the winner last year had very little experience. He'd made very, very few films, but came up with a very simple idea that was just so touching that the minute myself and the other jurors saw it, we just went, bingo, that's the one. And it had a certain honesty, and if I can use the word naivety, I don't think he would mind me saying that just made you think, wow, here's someone who's done it with all the pretense of the normal film people who dress all in black, wearing sunglasses inside and out day and night, who call themselves filmmakers. Those people are just full of it. So anyway.
Yeah, well, that is always going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you've got a story or a really good idea, that is a it's not always going to be the technical person, but we do have some customers as well. So we've got our prize, we've got technical excellence, we have a industry, and we've also got the coach. So it is incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And if anyone's watching this and has never made a movie before, but has always wanted to, what a great chance. And you may not get into the finals, but you will have made a film. And that should give you some confidence. And anyone who submits should just feel, give themselves a big pat on the back for doing it, because doing it is part of it. And then, of course, it doesn't matter, as you said, what your level is, because we do have these different categories. And the person who won last year the grand prize and went to Cannes was this newcomer with very little experience, who outgunned, outshot the pros with all the hardware and software and so on. Not to say that the newcomer will win this year, but it's just interesting to me how the thing that matters in these is, what is the story? What are you trying to say? And then, of course, how you choose to say it is important, because it's pictures. And the movie, again, that won last year had, as I recall, absolutely no dialogue. It was just pictures.
Yeah, just very, very strong imagery and voiceover.
Yeah, one of the other winners in the other categories did have pictures. The one with the newswoman,
yes.
And that was a compelling story too, with a bit of dialogue.
It was, and it is exactly what you said. It picked up on a news story and put a completely different twist on it.
Yeah, because we thought we were watching one sort of thing, and exactly different perspective. We thought we expected this, and at the last minute, completely the other way around. And again, I mean, that's one of the bases of comedy, what we call in storytelling terms the switch. You expect something, you know you're going to get something, I know it's going to happen last minute, something completely different happens. And in comedy, that's when we laugh.
Well, you know, our People's Choice last year, our best film by the public was the comedy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, comedy usually wins People's Choice.
Yeah.
It's just
Have you
what
got
it
it
is.
for people making a comedy? Because that's pretty hard.
Comedy is really, really difficult. I'm not a comedy guy, but the main thing to remember in comedy is the main character in your story does not change. One of the basic rules of comedy is someone who is challenged to change but doesn't. And you're British, and you may remember this show, Some Mothers Do Heaven, with Michael Crawford,
Yes,
who was the big idiot who everyone said, don't do it, and don't do it, and then he would go and do it, and of course he'd fall flat on his face, and we laughed.
And Peter,
So that's one of the,
his comedy as well. He never changed. So many of his characters.
yeah, no, another thing that's interesting, the difference between comedy and horror, is that horror is filmed full frame with someone going, ah, whereas comedy is more of a wide shot, medium shot, two people sitting at a table, whatever, having a discussion, whatever. So on horror, you can get away with a lower budget because we don't see very much. On comedy, because the heads are smaller, usually the big Hollywood comedies that work have the big stars, your George Clooney's and so on. George Clooney like this would be stupid, but George Clooney back like this, because the head's smaller, we see it. That's one of the things I notice when I'm looking at all these films we've had over the years at Raindance.
Now, we've got one question from Don McPhee. He's asking how much pro bono work you produced in your early years of filmmaking.
How much which work?
Pro bono. How much did you do?
Oh, how much pro bono? I work pro bono for many, many years. Not so much as a scenic artist, because that was in the days of the unions, both here in Britain and back in America when I was a member of IATSE, the big trade union. But when, you know, I've worked in theater, and I would do theater work as a scenic artist for nothing, just to get experience and try new techniques. And then when I started Raindance, the first number of years, I pretty much worked pro bono for the first probably 5 years, or very, very little. And I believe everyone should get paid. And we have in Britain the minimum wage laws, which means you can't have your friends help you unless you pay them, which is good that they get paid. What's bad about that is then you don't do it because you need help. I believe everyone should get paid. But in the creative industries, there's no longer the apprenticeship system that there used to be. And the only way you learn is by offering your time for nothing or next to nothing. So I'm afraid that breaking into the film industry nowadays means that if you're lucky, you work for food, and sometimes not even food.
Yeah. And if you're very lucky, you win this competition and you go to Cannes and you network with everyone and break in that way.
Well, that's one of the reasons people enter competitions such as this, is to get noticed. And there's two advantages of the competition is, number one, who sees your work. Look at who the jury is. At Raindance over the years, we've done many different competitions. And some of the people that have been in the competitions end up becoming successful filmmakers. In 1997, I organized my first shorts competition. It was won by a guy called Shane Meadows, who made a film for absolutely nothing. And one of the judges was Steve Woolley, the producer of The Crying Game, who watched the film from New York. He was a judge. He was editing Michael Collins, the famous British film. And he came back, he was so excited by the short film that he then produced Shane's first feature film called 24/7, starring the now deceased Bob Hoskins. So that would not have happened had Shane not entered this competition. Now, to give you an idea of his workflow, he started making shorts. He was a petty thief, and he got caught in community service, and he got sent to a community arts centre in Nottingham in the north of England, where they had camera equipment. So he did his community service, and then he borrowed the equipment with a couple mates. He would do just like we said, oh, let's do a little universal moment, eating a cheese sandwich, Who hasn't eaten a cheese sandwich? And he would do it with a couple of friends. They would shoot it. They would decide on a Wednesday what they're going to do. They would shoot it on a Thursday. He would edit Friday, Saturday, and then he would do another one. And he did one every single week until number 37, called Where's the Money, Ronnie, was a film that I saw in this competition. And he won. And see, he built up his little pebbles, his vocabulary of shapes. He didn't worry about money. I asked him at the night that he won the big schmoozy thing like we do for the Nikon European Film Festival event. I said, what was your budget on that film? And he said £1.69. I said, why £1.69? Well, he bought all the equipment for free from this community arts center. He said, but one of my actors was mildly diabetic and was having a sugar crash, and I had to buy him a cheese sandwich. And in those days, the cheese sandwich was £1.69.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now, I've got another question in here from James Baines, and he's asking, how do you know when you finish a movie? Because he says he finds it to start things and not finish them.
I'm sorry, Alison, can you repeat that? The sound keeps breaking here.
How do you know when you've finished a movie?
Well, first of all, movies are not ever finished. They're simply abandoned. There's always something that you wish you did better. But you will know when it's finished. And also, some people overwork them. It's like a painter will finish it and they'll keep adding, lines and stuff. At some point, hopefully yourself will know, or a friend who's looking at it will say, look, don't do any more, just finish. And sometimes, again, it depends on every person's individual workflow. You will work on one movie and then put it away for a bit, start another one. And then you may go back and say, oh, that was really dreadful, and fix it up. And other times you might say, actually, you know what? I thought I needed to do some more work, but actually, you know what? It's pretty good. That's cool. Let's put that into a film festival and see what's going on.
Great. I'll ask the same question of Asif, and his answer was when the time and money runs out.
Absolutely. When the deadline, you're finished at 1 minute to midnight on the day the submissions close on January 15, 2016, and you go, oh my God, am I still going to have enough time to upload this so it meets the submission criteria? So maybe your deadline is 2 hours earlier.
Yeah, so everybody bear that in mind. Submissions do close on the 15th of January next year. But the public vote starts on the 18th of November. So it's really important to submit early so that you can get the best chance in the process.
Sorry, you can go. Hey, David's sitting next to me. He's my assistant. My battery's going to run out. He's just running to get. Isn't that stupid of me? I should have brought my charger with me.
We're actually finishing this anyway, Elliot. But can I just ask you one last question? Let's get this in. Directing. Can you give us some directing? For new filmmakers, that's probably the one thing they've never done. They've shot things, but they've never actually directed anyone.
Yeah, well, your basic vocabulary of directings is you want to get the master shot, which is head and shoulders of the whole person, then a medium shot, which is waist to the top of the head. This isn't very good. I'm just on my laptop here. And then your close-up, and then your extreme close-up, which is either your nose and eyes or nose and mouth, very, very close, yeah? Those are your basic 3 shots that you want to get. But the 4th shot you want to get is the reaction shot. You want to get, and you've seen this, Alison, the cigarette over the ashtray, someone scratching their ear, dusting their shoulder off. You want to get little shots like that so that when you're going to the editing process, you've got a chance to mix it up again and show some detail. And it just makes your film more interesting. I could go on and on about directing. We would not have enough time, Alison. We would need a lifetime. But the basic rule of filmmaking is, for anyone wanting to enter this competition or anyone wanting to make a film anywhere, is get a script, get an idea, write it down, get a camera, and point it at actors. And that's filmmaking. And
That's
as Shane Meadows learned by trial and error, I mean, you'll learn so much by taking any camera, shooting something, sticking it into your computer, and then you'll see in a minute where you messed up, and then just go and do it again. And if you do it with the lightweight entry-level cameras are so good these days. All the companies, Nikon included, make fantastic entry-level cameras that don't cost a fortune, and you can easily do stuff. Even if you, I mean, I've got a friend who's trying to learn how to direct a conversation of people sitting at a table, and he doesn't have 4 friends available. So what he did at home on his table, he gets 4 teddy bears, and he just practiced shooting how he's going to do it.
brilliant.
What could be simpler than that? And, you know, you learn from doing.
I have one last question that's coming from Robert, and he's asking, should you write from the heart, or do you write for commercial reason, or do you so that the film has a chance of festival? I think we know the answer to that.
Well, of course you write from the heart, but again, you should decide before you make a movie, Alison, and I know you know this from your long and varied experience in television, that sometimes you have to write for money, and other times you write from passion. And again, Asif, in his amazing films that he's done, anyone have seen Amy or Senna, or his very first film, The Warrior, he has chosen deliberately to only write from the heart, which is very good. But there's other filmmakers that I will remain nameless, who crassly decide to make movies for money. Madonna's ex-husband, for example, is a very calculated director, very, very successful, Guy Ritchie, who deliberately makes movies specifically to make money. And do you know what? That's totally fine. But I think 100 years from now, when our children are looking at the history of cinema at this decade or two, his films won't be remembered because they don't have that little bit of extra thing. So decide what it is you want to get out of it. Some guys, Alison, and you're a girl, obviously, make movies simply because they think it's an easy way to get chicks. Other people do it because they have something they want to say that's right or wrong about the world. And other people make movies, as Guy Ritchie, because they want to be commercially successful. There's nothing wrong with any one of those things or right about any one of those things. It's just you need to decide. And when you've decided what it is you're doing, just go do it. And the beauty of what we're doing, and because the 140 seconds is such a small time and money commitment, really, is if you're not happy, you can do it again. And Alison, can people submit more than one film?
Yes, I can.
Well, there you go.
Actually, I need I'm actually not sure on that. I have seen multiple submissions, but I haven't heard I'm giving some misinformation. I think it might be just one.
Oh, well, if your phone is ringing right now, then it's probably from someone saying, no. But my point is, if you're not happy with what you do, just do it again.
Yes.
And again, and again, and you'll get better and stronger, as Henry Moore with his little pebbles, as Shane Meadows with his little £69 short films that were literally 4 minutes long, 5 minutes long, much longer than what Nikon people have, this competition has. And remember too, my last words on writing might be, when you're writing 140 seconds short, the universal moment, again, a great tool, thanks for reminding me, but it's a bit like writing haiku as opposed to a ballad. It's a very condensed thing, and it has a special skill.
Yes. And just what we talked before about the emotional connection, I think that the films that we see, for those who are not aware, Asif is our chief of the jury, chair of the jury this year in the European Film Festival, and his film aims at being gangbusters around the world because it's so incredibly emotionally engaging. You really do into the character.
Yeah, and again, I mean, that was a commercially successful film, not because he wanted to make money. I'm sure he still had commercial success. It is a commercial success because he wrote it and made it from the heart and told a story that, again, squeezes those body fluids out of the appropriate pore in your body.
Yes. Yeah. You really do. Okay, Elliot, I think we're just about done here. So I have put up the link on the event page for your short filmmaking guide. So
Yeah,
you
cool.
can find it there.
And by the way, I used to work with Chris Nolan. I met him when he was just starting out, and I helped him out a bit on his first film called Following, which he essentially remade 18 months later as Memento. And I don't know if any of your readers want the screenplay to Following.
Absolutely, I'm
Would
sure.
you? Would you?
Oh yeah.
Well, I tell you what,
Actually.
it's hidden within that. It's hidden within the short film guide. So
Okay.
you've got to read it. And a little big hint, it's in the writing page, and you will see a way to get that screenplay so you can study how one of the masters of cinema, one of the commercially successful masters of cinema, who has only ever also written from the heart, managed to get his first film made for the princely sum of something like 5,000 euros.
Wow. And was it, how much different from Memento? Memento is so highly structured and complex.
Well, if you see Following, it's also messing with the timeline. And he was experimenting with that story, you know, taking the timeline and going back and forth and so on. And Memento is a very similar type of story. And yeah, for anyone starting out, to see those two films back to back is actually a film school in a few hours, which is incredible what he did. And remember, Alison, Chris Nolan, and my first intern, Edgar Wright, none of those guys went to film school.
Yes.
They learned by doing. They learned by doing, and they got some free stuff, and they went and did it with what they could get their hands on. And then, in both of their cases, they understood the marketing of their projects, or they had people around them who did. In the case of Chris Nolan, it's his wife, Emma Watson, who he met at university, still married, they got 4 kids. She was the one that understood how to get it out. So that element, which is in one of the last chapter in the short film guide, is trying to explain how you get it out. And of course, as a filmmaker making a short film, if you want to get noticed, if you want to get, if you want to go to Cannes, put it into film festivals.
Yes.
Which the European Film Festival is a pretty decent start.
With terrific prizes, because basically from this, if you win the Grand Prix, then you get a Nikon film kit for your future projects, plus a career boost in Japan, or in all the other it's a Nikon D7, pretty high spec, that you can do some films on. And you're doing this in a minute, aren't you?
They're good. I mean, my team here, when we got our first Nikons last year, went, what? They're used to some of the other brands, and having used them now for a year, they realized that not only is the quality of the Nikon better, but the infrastructure and the architecture of the software and the hardware is far superior. And yeah, it's just a really, really good tool. And again, there's different price bands you can go into, whichever you want. I'm not the geeky guy that knows that, but it's an extremely well thought out kit.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time today. And I'm sure we'll do it before the competition closes.
Yeah, and look at that link, Alison. I want you to read that too, so you can give me more questions the next time we meet.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you. Talk soon. Bye.